All right, chapter 4, The Awakening. It'll be fine, me boy. You'll be fine. Just get yourself up a good breath of air. You'll just a wee smoked is all. Why, if you were a Virginia ham boy, you'd be pretty close to being ready to eat. Tommy, now stop that, reprimanded a woman's voice. The boy nearly lost his life out there in the slashing fire. Why, if you hadn't come along, along when you did, I would hate to think what would have happened to him. Ah, Miss Addie, you fret too much. The boy is as healthy as one of my horses. He'd be a dandy in no time. Gus rubbed his eyes and he tried to see where he was. Don't be doing that, boy. Your eyes might be burned. That boy's eyes aren't burned, Addie. Settle yourself down and stop fretting over the child. Gus looked around the room, but it was too dark to see well. He thought he could see Mr. Christie standing nearby, and he thought his mother was sitting beside him on the edge of the bed. Look, Eddie, the boy's got his eyes open. He'll be fine. Gus tried to sit up, but still dizzy from the smoke. He eased himself down on the bed. You all right? Asked his mother. With the eyes closed, Gus nodded his head. Just a little dizzy, that's all. Just then, Gus heard someone enter the room. How's that young'un? Is he gonna live? Oh, no. Gus knew that voice. It was Mr. Knowles. Opening up his eyes, Gus edged himself up on his elbows and tried to blink away the darkness. There before him stood the strangest sight he had ever seen. It was Mr. Knowles, or what looked like Mr. Knowles. He had a huge mustache curled up on both ends. He was wearing a red plaid shirt with what appeared to be a long red underwear sticking out from the shirt sleeves and his collar. And he was also wearing a black vest and black pants tucked into the tops of his long boots. Well, there you are, boy. Back from the dead, said Knowles. That fire sure was a nasty one. I knew we should have started a backfire to stop it. The darn thing almost got away from us. Then we find you laying in a pile of slashings nearby, nearly on fire yourself. Where'd you come from, boy? Continued Mr. Knowles. Afraid to be blamed for the fire, Gus blurted out, It wasn't my fault. I didn't start that fire. His throat was sore and his voice sounded dry and raspy with the smoke. Of course you didn't, cooed his mother. We all know that. You just got caught in the slashing fire in a burn-over. Gus looked at his mother in the dim light, rubbing his eyes again. I said, don't be doing that, boy. Close your eyes and put this nice cool cloth on your face. What's going on here, wondered Gus. Why is his mom calling me boy? And why is she talking in that funny voice? Where am I? Gus closed his eyes and felt the cool, damp cloth on his face. It felt good. Removing the cloth, Gus looked up to see his mother, or at least someone who looked like his mother. So, Miss Addie, what do you think? Asked Mr. Christie. Mr. Christie is talking funny now, too, thought Gus. And why is he calling my mom Addie? Well, Tommy, I believe you're a hero. Mr. Christie smiling at his mother. His grin was so big that his curly mustache poked both sides of his nose. This guy looked like Mr. Christie in his lumberjack outfit, but that was his what was his mother doing all dressed up? Gus looked around hard to see who he thought was his mother, but he could hardly believe his eyes. She had her hair all pulled up on top of her head in the way Gus had never seen her wear it before. She wore a long skirt with a big wide apron and a funny blouse with ruffles all over it. Boy, you don't know how lucky you are to have been saved by Tommy here. You owe him a debt of gratitude. Shucks, 'twas nothing, Miss Addie. Oh, Tommy, you should take the praise when you get it. That's enough, you two, interrupted Mr. Knowles. Since this here young'un is going to make it, I suggest you get back to your duties. Mom, what's going on? Why are you dressed like that? Gus squeezed out a sore, smoky throat. He began coughing. His lungs still ached from the smoke. Did you hear him, the boy, Tommy? It sounded like he called me Mom. He must be worse off than we thought. Eddie quickly got up and brought Gus a funny old tin cup full of cool water. Here, boy, drink. Gus sat down and drank the water. It was cold and it felt good on his throat. I don't understand, said Gus hoarsely. Where am I? Looking around the small room, he could see that he wasn't at school. He wasn't in the hospital. He wasn't even at home. I found you lying on the tote road. We were burning off the cuttings from the trees that were fell, and you were there, said Mr. Christie. That's all I know about you, boy. And if it weren't for Tommy here, added Addie, you wouldn't have made it. Oh, there you go again, Miss Addie. Gus shook his head in wonderment. Noel's booming voice spoke up. All I know is this here vagabond is keeping you two from your work. Addie, you should get going and box up the dough. Just as the door behind Noel's burst open, there was in the doorway was Al. Pa, where's the kid that almost got burned up in the slashing fire? I ain't ever seen no one so stupid as to get caught in a slashing fire before. Gus bolted up and started out of bed after Al. You jerk, Gus squeaked out. You started that fire. It's all your fault. Hold it there, boy, said Christie, holding Gus back. Let me at him, Gus strained against Christie's hold. This boy here's Alex, the Big Push's son, explained Christie. The Big Push? Repeated Gus weakly as he stopped struggling. That's right, boy, howled Knowles. I'm the Big Push around here. I run this lumbering camp, and you just remember that. What I say goes. Lumbering camp? What's going on? What happened to me? All of a sudden, Gus felt scared and very much alone. Something strange had happened, and he didn't know what it was. Tommy, said the Big Push, I think this boy's brains got dried out by all that smoke. I don't want no crazy youngin' hanging around camp stirring up trouble. He looks as big as a bear and as lazy as two. I want him out of here as soon as he's on his feet. Oh, come on now, boss, interrupted Tommy. Where's your charity? The boy's been through a lot. He's just confused, that's all. You can't turn him out to the camp just like that. Besides, where'd he go? We're 30 miles from the nearest settlement. Why don't you just let him hang around? We can do some odd jobs until the next wagon comes with supplies at the end of the week, and then if he hasn't pulled his weight, he can at least catch a ride to town. Sir, said Addie with a sweet tone, your son Alex here could use some help in the cook shack, you know. He's always complaining about how hard he has to work. You know, he doesn't like to stoke the fire or milk the cow. This boy can help Alex to earn his keep. Gus sat listening to the very confused. 30 miles from the nearest settlement. Where am I? He wondered. The North Pole? How can I be in the lumber camp? How come this lady looks like my mother, yet she isn't? And how can Mr. Christie be here? Why do they call him Tommy? The only thing that made sense at all to Gus was that Knowles was called the Big Push and Al was his son. All right, you two bleeding hearts. I'll give the boy a chance starting tomorrow. He helps Alex in the cook shack. Was that all right with you, son? The Big Push directed the question to Al, who smiled a rat grin at his father and then at Gus. The Push opened up the door and exited with Alex following close behind. What a big shot. Those two sure are a pair, said Addie. A pair of royal pains in the... Tommy interrupted Addie with a giggle. You shouldn't be talking disrespectful about the boss that way, even though it's true. Addie smiled at Tommy with a twinkle in her eyes. Isn't she something, boy, Miss Addie? She's no belly burglar either. She's the best cook north of the grand capital of Lansing, and a real corker she is, too. Oh, Tommy, you're a silly man. Gus watched and he listened as the two talked and joked together. Wow, Mr. Christie, or Tommy, and my mother. Well, now, boy, what is it that we'll be calling you? Asked Tommy. My name is Gus McCarty. Now, that's a good Irish name, if I ever heard one. Wouldn't you say, Addie? Indeed, it certainly is. We Irish need all the family around that we can get. Here are in these northern woods. You, Mr. Gus McCarty, may call me Addie. And this here, son of an Ireland, you call him Tommy. Now, I've got the two getting back to the kitchen. There's a bread to be baked and pies to be made for breakfast tomorrow. Pies for breakfast, wondered Gus. Wow, pies for breakfast? I'll be seeing you, Mr. McCarty, bright and early tomorrow morning, and don't be late." Addie opened the door, swooping the long skirt behind her as she left. "She's a looker, that one. And don't be getting any ideas about her, boy. She's my girl." Tommy smiled, a grin so big that his mustache curled flat. "I want you to be getting your rest. I'll be taking you to the lamp with me over to the bunkhouse to make sure it's lights out for you. Tomorrow we'll be getting up before the roosters, and after today you'll need all the rest you can get, 'cause Addie is a slave driver." Tommy winked at Gus and smiled. Tommy reached over to stand beside Gus's bed and lifted up a round glass lamp. The lamp had a strip of burning white cloth sticking on the top. "Lights out, Gus." Tommy leaned over and blew the flame out. Instantly, the room was pitch black, and the air held a bitter smell from the oil lamp. Gus could hear Tommy as he made his way out the door. Gus lay back on the bed. This was the strangest thing that had ever happened to him. Maybe it was smoke from the fire. Maybe it was that he hit his head. From Al, or maybe he was dead. No, that couldn't be right. Things were too much alive and too interesting. Gus closed his eyes, which still stung a little from the smoke. It felt good not to think anymore. Sleep was just beginning to sound like a good idea to Gus when all of a sudden he heard something that sounded like a low, deep growl. Where it was coming from, Gus held his breath, trying not to make any noise. He heard it again. It was coming from outside. Quietly, Gus snuggled down under the heavy, warm blankets of the bed, pulled them up over his head. "I don't know what it was out there," thought Gus, "but at least it's not in here." Closing his eyes tightly, he drifted off from the dreamless sleep.